There's another issue here that is a piece of this, and there's a huge story, absolutely huge story today in the New York Times that is being, as far as I can tell, completely ignored by the electronic media that you need to know about. And this is, I predict this is going to be one of the principal issues on which the 2020 election, at least for president, turns. And that's trade. I got an email from Donald Trump. As you know, if you just tuned in, I've been telling this story for years now. Back in 2015 when Trump announced, well, actually it was sometime after he announced, but I thought, okay, there's a freak show going on here. I want to get on this guy's mailing list. So I sent $5 to his campaign in the name of Fred Flintstone. I hope that's not a campaign finance crime. If it is, I plead guilty, I guess. But in any case, I've been getting emails ever since addressed to Fred. And here's one of the most recent ones. Fred, China is cheating the system. Now, these emails are going out to tens of millions of Americans who have donated to the Trump campaign, right? Dirty bureaucrats in Washington have allowed China to take advantage of our great nation for far too long. We've been a piggy bank that everyone wants to raid and exploit. No more! Trump is taking long overdue action by standing up to China's unfair trade policies and defending America's intellectual property, something cheating Obama would never have done. President Trump is fighting for you, but as always, he wants to make sure he gets your input on this key issue. Please take our America versus China survey. And then, of course, you click on the survey and it immediately takes you to a page that asks you for money. Now, that's not the big story. The big story is what's kind of following that. And that is what Xi Jinping did yesterday and today in China that I'm not seeing any reference to at all, which is pretty mind-boggling. The Long March, well, if you talk to a person from China and you say Long March, that's like talking to an American and saying the Boston Tea Party. It's part of the foundation myth, the mythology, and it's not a myth, by the way. It actually happened, but I mean, I'm using the term in the sociological/political context. It's the foundation myth of modern China. And what it was in 1934. Mao Zedong and a bunch of communists. Now, at that point in time, the country, China, was controlled by Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalists, and they started this literally 4,000-mile, 1 year. They called it the Long March. People died on this march, and they started it in what's the town in Jiangxi province. Okay, this is where the march started. And this is what kicked off the communist revolution in China, so that by 1949, they were able to actually drive Chiang Kai-shek out of China. He went to Taiwan and founded the modern country of Taiwan. And the communists took over China. So this is their founding myth, okay, or founding story, let's say. So yesterday, day before yesterday, Tuesday, oh, wait a minute, today's Wednesday, right? Yeah, okay, yesterday. Xi Jinping went to Jiangxi province. He went to the place where the Long March started. And he spoke at the site of the start of the Long March. This would be like an American president going to where the Boston Tea Party started at the wharf in Boston, or maybe the Gettysburg Address. Although this is more a founding, but we kind of rebooted our country. In any case, he goes there and he says, now there is a new Long March, and we should make a new start. That's a verbatim quote from Xi Jinping, the president or whatever, emperor of China. It was broadcast on state-run television on Tuesday. Then this morning, he told another audience in the same town in Jiangxi. This is from a piece by Alexander Stevenson in today's New York Times. The headline, China faces new long march as trade war intensifies, Xi Jinping says. On Wednesday, Mr. Xi told another audience in Jiangxi that the country, quote, must be conscious of the long-term and complex nature of various unfavorable factors at home and abroad and properly prepare for the various difficult situations. In other words, Xi is saying to his people, get ready, it's going to get tough. Now, they just had this swine flu, or I'm not sure it's a flu, but it's a disease that affects pigs. They've killed millions and millions of pigs, or hogs, or whatever, you know, in China to try to stop this disease. This is driving up pork prices. Their fruit prices have been going up in part because of wild weather in China. This is not something that's happening just in the United States. But they're blaming it all on us. And in fact, he went to the city of Guangzhou, which is where there's a rare earth mine. Now, right now, China, rare earths are necessary to create computer chips and also to make solar panels. And we used to have a major rare earth supply in California. There's a giant mine in California for rare earths, rare earth minerals. But the Chinese started producing rare earth minerals literally below market prices, below the price that we could manufacture or that we could extract and refine them here in the United States. And so our mines all closed. So China's the world's supply of this stuff right now. Right? There's three principal places that supply it: China, Africa, and California. And I forget where in Africa they're mining it. I think it might be near the DRC. But in any case, the mines in Africa are increasingly being controlled by the Chinese through the Belt and Road Initiative. And he gave this speech in Guangzhou and said that, quote, "We must intensify our efforts to develop rare earths. They are a strategic resource." So they're getting ready for a trade war. In fact, they declared one this morning. And they also notified Trump that there's no more trade talks. Sorry, no more trade talks. Now, what Donald Trump is going to do with this, mark my words, is he is going to run on this in 2020. This is probably going to soften, if not sink, our economy. And, you know, I'm going to get into that in an hour. There's, you know, I was right about the crash of 2016, and we'll get into all those details. But you know, Greg Sargent noted, this was a week or so ago, May 13th, in the plumb line in the Washington Post, he noted that, quote, "Trump is staking re-election on one of his biggest lies. That is that China is paying us billions in tariffs." And, you know, in point of fact, American companies or Chinese companies are paying the tariffs. But, you know, and this was part of, you know, Greg Sargent's basically, you know, we need to have trade. And today, similarly, in the New York Times, you've got Thomas Friedman, you know, the perpetually confused op-ed columnist, saying China deserves Donald Trump. He says, "We let China join the World Trade Organization in 2001, and China grew by forcing technology transfers from U.S. companies, subsidizing its own companies, maintaining high tariffs, ignoring WTO rulings, and stealing intellectual property." Thomas Friedman goes on to say China under Xi announced a Made in China 2025 modernization plan, promising subsidies to make China's private and state-owned companies the world leaders in superconducting, artificial intelligence, new materials, 3D printing, facial recognition software, robotics, electric cars, autonomous vehicles, 5G wireless, and advanced microchips. Now, Friedman, of course, you know, the author of The Olive Tree versus the Lexus, which was a total crazy BS book, thinks that the solution to this is more free trade. But I'm telling you, the reason Sherrod Brown won re-election in Ohio the same year that Donald Trump became president, and Brown won re-election by 6 or 8 points, and Trump won Ohio by a couple of points. The reason Sherrod Brown won is because he has been saying from the get-go, forever, we need a tariff-based protectionist trade system in the United States. We are the only developed country in the world that doesn't have a VAT tax. Other countries are using their VAT taxes as a functional tariff. And many of these countries actually literally have tariffs. So, you know, this is the situation that we're facing right now, is that this, basically we have to reboot our trade systems. I have been saying this on this program for 15 years. This whole embrace of so-called free trade back in the 90s was crazy. And, you know, and it was crazy. and it's coming home to roost.